Peace. You are tuned into Edible Activists with your host and favorite edible activist, Melissa L. Jones. On this show, we honor Black people and their stories in food and agriculture, celebrating legacy, traditions, contributions, and creativity that all stem from the land. So tune in and let's get started. Peace. I am your host and favorite edible activist, Melissa L. Jones. Today's guest took a personal family project during the height of the pandemic and turned it into one of the most recognized community food movements. Asmeret Berhe-Lumax is the founder and CEO of One Love Community Fridge, based in Brooklyn, New York, that works to connect, empower, and engage the community through education and providing access to fresh, healthy food with no stigma. Her organization has redirected over 11 million pounds of food, serving thousands of individuals. What she's built is more than just food. It's about dignity, design, and what it looks like when a community truly takes care of itself. Welcome to Edible Activists, Asmeret.
Oh, thank you for having me, Melissa. I'm so excited to be here.
Listen, people are going to hear this story over and over because I've already had a guest on this show from the Black Women in Food Conference, and you are another person who I had a wonderful moment with at the conference. And so I've just been so happy to continue the connection since our conference, and it's an honor to have you on the show.
Honor is all mine. All mine.
Awesome. Well, we're going to jump into it.
Good.
Asmeret, you were born in East Africa, grew up in Sweden before building a life in a movement in Brooklyn. And that is a remarkable journey across cultures and continents and communities. How did that all shape the way that you see food?
I think food has always been central in terms of my family and our community. It's also been like moving from East Africa to Northern Europe, very, very different culture. There's also a way that we were able to also share our culture and our traditions with new neighbors, but also how we learned about our neighbors. And I mean, I grew up, even though I grew up in Sweden, the community I grew up with was extremely diverse. So I had grew up with friends from, some of my closest friends from Turkey, from other parts of Africa, from Italy, from South America. So it was a very, very international community. In a lot of ways, the way we connected was with food and sharing our traditions. And you just think about how food is such a powerful thing because it's we all need it as humans to survive, and it also has the power to really, really connect us. And then outside of that, it's obviously the way we operate for One Love Community Fridge is that food is the foundation of our health. So both like physically and mentally. But I think like and in terms of my personal family, like we food has always been central in terms of celebrations. But even like disagreements, you still gather over food to kind of solve disagreements. When somebody comes to your house, you welcome them with food. So it is such a amazing connector and way to show people that are humans that we have more like than differences. So yeah, I think food has always been something that's like I associate with just community as well.
Absolutely. Asmeret, when I hear One Love Community Fridge and especially One Love, I want to cue Bob Marley so quick.
I know.
So quick. And I love the name, but you landed in the beautiful island of Brooklyn, where all of this, mostly happens. And so for those who are just hearing about One Love Community Fridge, like how would you share this like beautiful story and movement to folks for them to learn more?
Yeah. Well, I will start not to sidetrack us, but I can even the name only because your name mentioned name was I was sitting down with our two daughters and we were talking about like what is the things that are important to us, like why are we doing this? And one of our daughters, La Rose, she was literally saying because we are talking about how important it is to like that there's respect, that there's dignity, and like it's about well-being and like really kind of bringing people together and focus on like partnership and collaboration and like how to expand communities. And so she was the one that was actually just like, oh, you should call it One Love Community Fridge because that, that would invite a lot of people. So so that's actually where, and I think also being inspired by obviously the Bob Marley and the message around love and bringing people together. But
Shout out to the daughters.
well, they now their oldest one is about to turn 18, and then youngest one is about to will turn 16 this year. But they've also been a huge part of building everything over the past 6 years. So it's been amazing. But for somebody that's new to One Love Community Fridge, I would say like our mission is to connect, empower, and engage the community, and we do it through education, providing access to fresh food, and really focusing on like removing stigmas that's associated with food insecurity. And there's kind of three values that lead everything that we do, and it's respect, dignity, and health. And I would say like we have our two main tools are our community fridges, and then we use design a lot in terms of when we build, how we build, and what drives like different initiatives as well.
That's awesome. I was going to ask how involved your daughters were, and just to hear that they've been like such a large part of this. I mean, this started during the pandemic, correct? And so this was
Yeah.
a family project. What were those early days? What did those early days look like in such a crazy, crazy, crazy time
I mean,
when you started this?
exactly. So it was early on in pandemic. We were in Brooklyn, New York. Everything was shutting down. We were getting all these reports in terms of more and more family. I mean, food insecurity was already a big issue before the pandemic hit, and more families than ever, and a lot of families that maybe never even had to need support before. At the same time, as we were hearing all the reports around farms having to destroy crops, a restaurant destroying food, food purveyors also destroying food. So we just felt we had to do something. We wanted to do something. We set up initial community fridge, and initially we would go and buy food and stock it, and then we would have friends that would reach out saying, "How can we help? What can we do?" And had a good friend that he's like she was working closely with one of our first food partners, and she said, "I am sure they would want to support." And that's also when I was learning. I also learned even more about like food excess in this
Hmm.
country. So, and for anybody that doesn't know, like over 40% of the food that's produced here in the US goes to waste. And, it's not because there's something wrong. The majority of the time, it's because the way our food system is designed. So, during the pandemic, those numbers increased even more. So we have all this excess food. We have a lot of people that are hungry, and for us was like, how do we connect those two? And the thing with the community fridge that I think is so genius is that we didn't have to invent something. It is something that a lot of people have. It's so simple, but it
Hmm.
allows you to invite a lot of people to be a part of the process. And I think
Hmm.
that was one of the challenges I think I was seeing before too is and one of the things that we want to absolutely address with One Love was like we want to create spaces where people can participate in ways that work for them.
Hmm.
So not creating as trying to solve this issue around food insecurity by creating dependency on us as an organization, but like how do we create a space that people can participate in ways that work for them? So meaning like can they contribute what they can in terms of food or their time or knowledge? So that was really important for us. And like and it still is.
Yeah, yeah. No, just really all great gems that you just dropped, and just thinking about I do have a question around like the design process, but it was you maybe could have, created some tech forward solution, right? But like would that really solved anything? Like when you're thinking about design, and I don't know all the components and elements, Esmeralda, you're
Yeah.
probably more pro than me, but what do folks relate to, or what can they identify easily? Because there may be some folks who don't have access to a refrigerator, but they know what one is and they know what's inside of it. So, just thinking around like that design process and like what are those identifiers that when people see something like, oh, this is nourishment.
Exactly. I mean, again, if somebody's listening that's like, you don't know what a coffee mini fridge is, or it's the first time you hear about it, it's a fridge that's placed in a public space and it's for anyone to take food from it and anyone to place food in it. So, and the ownership of the fridge goes to the community. So it's a very like hyper local approach to addressing food insecurity, and it's really about community building, and it's really about the
Mhm.
human connection, and it is a solution that's very much built on relationships and trust that allows neighbors, allows local businesses, and obviously larger business to be involved. I worked in fashion for a long time, fashion and beauty, and I think I'm fully understanding also like the power of like good design, what that
Mm.
means in terms of inspiring people, creating visibility for people, making people feel valuable or seen, and then how that then translates and how people feel about themselves in terms of people taking ownership and how they then show up in the world. And I
Mhm.
think you always talk about like the power of beauty, and like, and for us it's not something that's superficial, it's something that's real in terms of humans, because it decides like who we are attracted to, what we think is important, what is worth spending our time on, how do we feel about ourselves. So with One Love Community Fridge, we really wanted to make sure that everything that we design, it is functional but also beautiful and respectful, and allows to create these spaces where so many different people are coming together and feel seen and respected and feel like there's a place for them to contribute. Or if they just need support, also feel like don't feel embarrassed or to be in that
Mhm.
space. So that's important for us. And that's why we think about how that then looks, is like we think about in terms of we want to don't feel judged. We want to feel like, okay, you know what?
Mm.
I deserve this as well. That's something it's very intentional and we spend a lot of time around it.
Asmeret, that is incredible. Well, first of all, if I have to say this, like, of course you worked in fashion and design. Like, this model shows up on my show, just beautiful, striking. I have to
No,
say
you
that.
know what? I worked on the back end. I worked in like in
Doesn't matter. Doesn't
pro
matter.
product development, and but the other part that is supply chains management and logistics, because it
Mhm.
is a
Very
lot of
important.
logistics that goes into to to organizing this. Because the other thing that we think about is also like efficiency, and
Mm.
uh,
Yep.
and then I was like, what is efficiency to us? Because is efficiency to bring out as many meals as possible? Not really, because for
Right.
us, efficiency is really about how we do things as much as what we do. So I would rather, if the question was between, okay, bring out a million meals and just get it out and that's it, or bring out 500,000 meals, but you take in the time to understand what are those meals, how are they been delivered, how are they packaged,
Mhm.
is there any way that when we deliver them, that we do it in a way that also connects people together, that also
Mhm.
allows people to come up with ideas that can be supported for other things. I would rather do the 500,000. And then that's what we're doing. So for us, efficiency is really about like the community building, the human connection, and also ensuring that it is like that is a win-win for our food partners as well. So
Mm.
we're
Yep.
not approaching this from like a charity model. It's really about investing into our communities, and again, like I keep saying, like allowing and creating opportunities for as many people to be a part of it as possible.
Wow. First of all, Asmat, are you ready to teach your session on how to build a model like this? And it's going through my mind as someone
Yeah,
who's business,
yeah,
minded, savvy at times when my thinking cap is on. but like the product development, the design, just being able to, and I'm sure this was like all unintentional, like in the midst of pandemic, you're like, I just want to do something right now with my family to like feed people, right? But to come in with that lens because of that background that you had, to be able to build this model is super incredible. And I think about, and that's actually what I like about the food space. You don't have to have like some specific degree to want to help people, but it is the diversity of skill sets that folks have to be able to build like models that are efficient. And I just think I'm learning so much in this moment, but I just think that's super incredible that you were able to walk in and have that lens and apply it to the business model, and with you and your amazing team create this movement that's super efficient, but thinking about like all those elements, all those spokes in the wheel to like run this operation. So
Yeah.
I'm just like wowed over here.
Thank you. I mean, thank you. I appreciate it. But I think the most important thing to also is like that it is impactful. Like at the end of the day, it's like it needs to be impactful, and whatever we do, the it is for the community, by the community.
Yes.
And then we do have our like kind of core, right? Around, I talked about the connect, engage, empower, access, inclusion, education, respect, dignity, health. Everything else needs to be somewhat dynamic so that it is about being able to be responsive to changes. It is to be able to also be responsive to each neighborhood is different. Like not even each neighborhood, each block. So,
Right.
so, so
True. In New York City,
like I
absolutely.
think like you can think about even like in Brooklyn, we have three fridges that are, for example, they're walkable distance from each other in terms of their two of them are like 10 minutes away walk, and then two of them are just like 5 minute walk from each other. So very close.
Mhm.
Each fridge has completely different needs. So like being able to make sure that it is responsive, that it is community owned, it is that's another thing that's important to us. So and then with that said is like we always think about that in terms of our overall operations. Like how do we continue to stay dynamic without losing the human connection and always staying true to our like core values, but everything else has to be, yes, has to be being able to respond to different needs.
What has scaling taught you about community and trust and about what people actually need? You've spoken to like, I think the latter part to this a lot about what people need and, like without the stigmas and the
Yeah.
human connection. But scaling is no easy thing at all.
No, it's not. Yeah, first I would say like the model that we have, it does take some time because again, I feel like I've said it like four times already. I was like human connection. No, and I keep emphasizing it because it is the human connection. We as humans, we are wired to be connected with each other.
Mhm.
So even with this the issue around food insecurity, it's physical health, it's mental health. The mental health aspect is also loneliness is tied into it, and loneliness is actually huge part of
Mm,
connected to food insecurity as well. The way we set up our model is that it's basically hyper local. Each kind of fridge is its own community
mhm,
that's then under like a bigger umbrella. But you
mhm,
need to, and then we provide kind of the infrastructure to be able
mhm,
to have the each local community.
mhm,
So, the fridge structure, the food partners, the guidelines around kind of what works and what doesn't work, to think about in terms of kind of safety, to
yep.
think about that what is important as our values and so on. But then you just go one by one. And
One
it's
one
truly
step at a
honestly
time.
one step at a time. One fridge at a time. But I'm
One
gonna
fridge at a time. Yes.
but it's truly, I would say it's truly remarkable to see what is possible and what happens when people do feel that they are trusted and they understand that they are capable.
Hmm.
It is amazing.
Yes. I say on this show quite often that, the food space can be super judgmental and it's an easy space to get caught up in the trap of like, this is the right way. You got to do it this way. And I've evolved. I said this in a conversation previously. Like I've evolved in terms of like how I think about food. And at the end of the day, everyone is doing something to help solve all the crises of the
Yeah.
world. But you never want to feel like because you're making a certain food choice or you need food that you feel bad about yourself. I had Brooklyn Supported Agriculture on my show not too long ago. And Chef said there's no such thing as bad food. When you don't have any food, let's start there. And while we know this, like when he dropped that, I was just like, wow, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so yes, we know that like fresh vegetables and produce, is super can be healthy for folks
Mhm.
to contingent on like how it's grown too. But you don't want to make folks feel bad about what they need.
No, and absolutely not. It's so important. I mean, the stigma around it is so important. But, the way we approach it is we focus mainly on fresh foods. So
Hmm.
not just produce, but also fresh meals. But
Hmm.
we also we bring out everything like through our food partners. So it's like, it's dairy, it's meat, it's baked goods, and so on. But in our communication, we focus mostly on fresh foods. And the reason why we do that is because a lot of organizations in the space do not focus on fresh food. They focus on food that has a long shelf life. And the other thing is, we don't advocate for specific diet or lifestyle. What we're advocating is for people to be able to have the opportunity to choose. And in order for people to have the opportunity to choose, they also need to be educated around it so they can make an educated decision like, I want this or I don't want this. I like this or I don't like this. But that usually, those decisions are based on what you're
Hmm.
exposed to, what you have access to, what you know about. So, and if in a lot of our communities, in our neighborhoods, if there's no access to fresh food, if there's no access to education around nutrition, how are you then going to make a decision around it? Because you're automatically going to make a decision on something that what you used to, what you associate with feeling good about. So it's very difficult. So I mean, access by itself, it's not enough. Like, it actually needs to be access. There needs to be education, there needs to be exposure, there needs to be consistency around it too. And I think the other thing that's really, really important again is, there needs to be some joy and inspiration about it.
Mm.
So, because that's how we kind of, if we're eating, if we're good something, it's usually because we associate with, a positive memory and so on. So I think that is important for us. So even though we talk about like fresh food, it's not because we're like, everybody should just eat, this is what everybody should eat. But
Yeah.
a lot of our neighborhoods, you don't even have that option. So
Hmm.
it's just giving people the opportunity to choose and have access to it.
Yeah. Asmeret, food insecurity cuts across seniors, students, working class families, right? Like people who are on a tight budget. Listen, we're in a place where gas prices are high and budgets are, shrinking. There's lots happening in this world. And so how would you like for people to reimagine who food insecurity actually touches? Because it's easy to share like one story or
Yeah.
like one face of like this is the community that's food insecure. And I mean, I remember a couple years back, I heard a woman talk about food insecurity on college
Yeah.
campuses that just like blew my mind. I would actually like to do a whole series around that, but it cuts
People
across.
forget. Yeah.
People forget. How would you like folks to
There's,
reimagine?
I would say there's not one face, and the fridges are a great way to show that because a lot of times
Mm,
traditional food pantries, you have to live specific zip code, you have to identify yourself, so automatically like a lot of people are disqualified or don't feel comfortable coming. What we see at the fridges is there's no one face. It is the whole spectrum from, we have families that are houseless, the shelter system, all the way, honestly, to people that might not need as much support, but they are lonely or they're looking for community or, and then, again, like you mentioned now, seniors, students,
Mhm.
across the board. So we're talking about lower school, middle school, upper
Mhm.
school, university. Again, as you mentioned now, a lot of times people don't think about college students, especially if you think about students that are on financial aid or are on scholarships and so on. Like food is usually not included in that. So how
Yeah.
are you going to be able to excel when you're hungry? How are you going to stay healthy when you're hungry? And how are you going to take advantage of education opportunities when you are, well, like it's impossible.
Mhm.
And then we have a lot of families like just on again on very tight budgets. So if you have a family on a tight budget, usually the first thing that goes is fresh food because
Mhm.
in many of our neighborhoods, because the access is so limited, it's also when it's accessible, it's a higher prices than in many other neighborhoods. So that's another issue as well. So I think the one thing I want to say is like there's not a single county in United States that does not have food insecurity. So it's everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
It's not just one face. Wow. Asmeret, what are other ways outside of the fridge and, your team and volunteers coming together to pack these amazing bags? What are other ways you all come together as a community
I
outside of
think,
the fridges?
yeah, I mean, we actually do quite a wide range of engagements, again, because we want to create the space for a lot of people to get involved. So we organize workshops, meal preps, we organize like farm trips, that we have farm partnerships. We work directly with schools in different ways too, and also outside of the hands-on experiences or hands-on like actions, it's also around like awareness around food insecurity as
Mhm.
well. So there's so many ways to get involved. um, Everything from showing up in person, friends or family, to sharing awareness around it, to supporting through expanding network or supporting financially, to just letting just another person know.
I love that. Are there any other partnerships that could fit into the fold or need to that you haven't explored yet?
Let's see, because we really look at ourselves as like we are nonprofit, but sitting on this like intersection between for-profit, nonprofit, public,
Mhm.
and private. And the reason we do that is because if you're really looking at like long-term change and like having impact, we're definitely not going to solve it by ourselves. It needs to be across different industries. Um, we love having, I guess, maybe some people might consider unexpected partnerships because it might be outside of the wellness or food or restaurant sectors. But let me see, I mean, one of the things that I love that we're working on now is also making the connection to creativity and art
Mhm.
and the beauty of it, because we're also looking at like how do we really inspire people to be a part of this movement. So even if they're not in the nonprofit world, or even if you're not in the food world, they're still thinking about like, where's my place in the community, what can I do, what can I help, and like really kind of breaking down these like big problems around food insecurity and food insecurity and food excess, to like actionable steps that people can take both on like on everyday level, smaller businesses and larger as well, and like really turning that into like tangible action. But then I think like I also welcome the tech industry
Mhm.
to help facilitate our approach in a way that it still remains the human connection still
The
remains.
human connection,
Still remains.
absolutely.
Because
Yes.
I definitely don't believe that it has to be like mutually exclusive in terms of either it's just like super manual or just completely tech. Like there's a way to really use tech to facilitate.
You have been dropping that human connection theme throughout the entire show, and I really appreciate that. I love honing in on a point over and over and over again, and I totally fair to say that because, I think that is a concern. Once you introduce tech into something, it's like, do you start to separate from the
I mean,
humanity of it all?
exactly,
Because we've
especially
seen
like
it,
we're think about where we are right now in terms of
right?
AI, right? So,
Yeah.
right now, I think we're in this world that people are, it's like either or, and within our space, it can't be either or. It needs to be both,
Hmm.
a bit of
Hmm.
both, and
Yep.
it absolutely cannot just be completely tech. Because we do see there are organizations that focus immediately on that, but in my from my perspective, that is then just about delivering food from point A to B. There's not really any concern in terms of how and why and what happens next. And like
Hmm.
really again, like allowing like people to get time to really think or really get engaged or like it's more like what like instead of I think you then create this almost this situation where there's a reliance on the organization rather than being kind of the catalyst and being the organization that provide the tools so that the people then can do it on their own. But I definitely think tech needs to be a part of it somehow. Uh, and then I would say, I mean, obviously farming was already in there. The other thing that's I think is interesting. It's tied to art as well. It's actually music.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
So because that's also like for example, I'll say we have our health forum coming up,
Hmm.
and it's an annual event that we do to it's a free annual event we to bring people together and like it's tangible like collective tangible action but one of the things that we think about during the event is like we want people to come to create muscle memory where they're doing taking action that's like good for themselves doing good for the community while having a good time. At the same time, as we have all these sensory experiences. So there's kind of music. There's also like conversation happening. There's visually also like a lot to like take in and like you're connecting. So the idea is like to create this experience where people are coming together, meeting somebody, hopefully somebody new, taking this action. They're also having conversation, and they have a like there's and then there's like associating with a lot of positivity, so that when they leave, their thinking is, okay, this was incredible. What else can I do? How do I take this further?
Asmeret, this has been a masterclass. I want you to know that. And I'm not even joking. I can't wait to listen to this episode over and over and over again. I mean, just like the beauty and the depth and the experience that you come from in this community that you have built, and what you and your team have scaled. Thank you. Thank you so
No,
much.
thank you. I think not think I know it's also women like yourself that help amplify the message and continue to inspire others. And the work that we're doing wouldn't been able to carry us far if it wasn't for women like you. So I want to thank you
Oh,
for initiating conversations and like amplifying messages and asking like the real questions.
I received that. Where can folks find you on the interwebs, Asmeret?
You can find us on onelovecommunityfridge.org or follow us on our Instagram, One Love Community Fridge, or come and see us. Our main hub is in Brooklyn, New York, but we're also in Seattle and coming to LA and Atlanta this year.
So exciting. That'll be part two. Thank you all for joining in. Peace. Thank you for listening to Edible Activists. You can find today's episode on Spotify, iTunes, and Simplecast, and follow along on all social media platforms at Edible Activists for updates. Want to support this platform? You can do so by purchasing our commerce or connecting with me about media partnerships at www.edibleactivist.com. In the words of Baba Tariq Adunu, there is no culture without agriculture. Peace.